Have you ever felt lost, confused, or even frightened on your spiritual path? If so, you're not alone. Many people experience challenges and obstacles as they navigate their journey of spiritual awakening. While we often hear about the positive aspects of spiritual growth, such as increased self-awareness, inner peace, and a deeper connection to the divine, there is another side to this process that is less frequently discussed. This is the dark side of spiritual awakening, a phase that can be difficult, uncomfortable, and even painful at times. But it's important to understand that this is a normal and necessary part of the journey. In this video, we'll explore the concept of the dark side of spiritual awakening and provide guidance on how to navigate this challenging terrain. We'll discuss common experiences such as the dark night of the soul, facing your shadow self, and dealing with ego death. We'll also offer tips for cultivating discernment, finding support, and practicing self-compassion during these trying times. By the end of this video, you'll have a better understanding of what to expect on your spiritual path and how to approach the difficulties that may arise with courage, wisdom, and grace. One of the most well-known aspects of the dark side of spiritual awakening is the dark night of the soul. This term, coined by the 16th century Spanish mystic Saint John of the Cross, refers to a period of spiritual crisis or desolation that many people experience on their path. During this time, you may feel a sense of emptiness, despair, or disconnection from the divine. You may question your faith, your purpose, and even your very existence. It can be a deeply unsettling and disorienting experience. However, it's crucial to understand that the dark night of the soul is not a punishment or a sign that you're doing something wrong. Rather, it's a necessary stage of spiritual growth, a kind of shedding process where old beliefs, attachments, and identities are stripped away to make room for new levels of consciousness and understanding. In many ways, it's like the caterpillar dissolving in the chrysalis before emerging as a butterfly. The process may be uncomfortable, but it's essential for transformation. Some common symptoms of the dark night of the soul include feelings of emptiness or meaninglessness, a sense of being lost or disconnected from oneself and others, a lack of motivation or direction, and even physical symptoms like fatigue or illness. It's important to remember that these experiences are temporary and that they will eventually pass. By staying present with the discomfort and trusting the process, you can emerge from the dark night with greater clarity, strength, and wisdom. Another significant aspect of the dark side of spiritual awakening is confronting your shadow self. The shadow refers to the parts of ourselves that we've repressed, denied, or hidden away, often out of shame, fear, or social conditioning. These may be qualities like anger, jealousy, greed, or selfish desires that don't fit with our self-image as a spiritual person. During the awakening process, these shadow aspects tend to surface more strongly as we become more conscious and aware. Facing your shadow can be a daunting prospect. It requires a willingness to look honestly at the parts of yourself that you may not like or want to acknowledge. However, this process is essential for true spiritual growth and integration. When we suppress or ignore our shadow, it tends to manifest in unconscious or destructive ways, sabotaging our relationships, our work, and our overall well-being. By bringing the shadow into the light of consciousness, we can begin to heal and transform these aspects of ourselves. Some ways to work with your shadow include journaling, dream work, therapy, or spiritual practices like meditation and self-inquiry. The key is to approach this process with compassion and non-judgment, recognizing that everyone has a shadow and that it's a natural part of the human experience. As you integrate your shadow, you may find that you have access to greater creativity, authenticity, and personal power. One of the most intense and potentially frightening aspects of the dark side of spiritual awakening is the experience of ego death. This refers to the dissolution or death of the ego, the sense of separate self that we've identified with for most of our lives. During ego death, our usual ways of understanding ourselves and the world around us break down, leaving us feeling groundless, uncertain, and even terrified. It's important to understand that ego death is a natural and necessary part of the awakening process. As we expand our consciousness and realize the interconnectedness of all things, our limited sense of self begins to fall away. This can be disorienting and uncomfortable, as we may feel like we're losing our identity, our purpose, and our very sense of reality. However, ego death is ultimately a liberating experience. As we let go of our attachment to the ego, we open ourselves up to a vaster, more expansive sense of being. We begin to realize that we are not separate from the world around us, but rather an integral part of the greater whole. This realization can bring a profound sense of peace, love, and unity. Navigating ego death requires a willingness to surrender and let go of control. It means trusting the process, even when it feels scary or uncertain. Some helpful practices during this time may include meditation, prayer, spending time in nature, or seeking the guidance of a trusted spiritual teacher or mentor. Remember that ego death is a temporary experience, and that you will eventually emerge from it with a new sense of self and a deeper understanding of your true nature. Another common pitfall on the spiritual path is the tendency towards spiritual bypassing. This refers to the use of spiritual practices or beliefs to avoid or suppress difficult emotions, unresolved traumas, or other psychological issues. It's a way of using spirituality as an escape, or a way to bypass the hard work of personal growth and healing. Some examples of spiritual bypassing might include using meditation to numb out difficult feelings rather than actually processing them, believing that everything happens for a reason as a way to avoid taking responsibility for one's actions, or focusing solely on positive thinking while ignoring the reality of suffering and injustice in the world. While these approaches may provide temporary relief, they ultimately hinder genuine spiritual growth and emotional maturity. Overcoming spiritual bypassing requires a commitment to honesty, self-reflection, and a willingness to face one's own pain and shadows. It means recognizing when we're using spirituality as a way to avoid or escape, rather than as a tool for growth and transformation. It also means being willing to seek out additional support, such as therapy or counseling, when needed. Some signs that you may be engaging in spiritual bypassing include a tendency to judge others for not being spiritual enough, a resistance to facing difficult emotions or situations, or a sense of disconnection from your body and physical reality. By bringing awareness to these patterns and working to address them, you can begin to develop a more grounded, integrated, and authentic spiritual practice. As we progress on the spiritual path, it's not uncommon to experience periods of disillusionment. This can happen when our idealized notions of spirituality or enlightenment are shattered by the realities of life, or when we realize that our chosen path or teacher is not what we thought it was. Disillusionment can be a painful and confusing experience, leaving us feeling lost, betrayed, or even hopeless. However, disillusionment is actually an important part of the awakening process. It's a sign that we're letting go of our attachments to external sources of validation and learning to trust our own inner wisdom and discernment. It's a call to go deeper, to question our assumptions, and to find our own way forward. Dealing with disillusionment requires a willingness to sit with the discomfort and uncertainty rather than trying to escape or deny it. It means being honest with ourselves about what isn't working and having the courage to make changes when necessary. It also means cultivating a sense of inner resilience and self-trust, knowing that we have the strength and wisdom to navigate even the most challenging of circumstances. Some helpful practices during times of disillusionment may include journaling, spending time in nature, connecting with supportive friends or community, or engaging in creative pursuits that help us to process our emotions and find new sources of meaning and purpose. Remember that disillusionment is a natural part of the growth process, and that it can ultimately lead us to a deeper, more authentic understanding of ourselves and the world around us. As we navigate the often confusing landscape of spirituality, it's essential to cultivate discernment. Discernment is the ability to distinguish between what is true and what is false, what is helpful and what is harmful, and what resonates with our own inner wisdom versus what is imposed from outside sources. Without discernment, we can easily fall prey to misinformation, manipulation, or even abuse in spiritual contexts. Cultivating discernment requires a commitment to self-reflection and critical thinking. It means being willing to question our own beliefs and assumptions, as well as those of others. It also means learning to trust our own inner guidance system rather than blindly following external authorities or teachings. Some ways to cultivate discernment include developing a regular meditation or contemplation practice, learning about different spiritual traditions and philosophies, and seeking out diverse perspectives and opinions. It also means being honest with ourselves about our own biases, limitations, and areas of ignorance, and being willing to learn and grow. Ultimately, true discernment comes from a place of inner wisdom and intuition. It's about learning to listen to the still, small voice within and trusting that it will guide us towards what is right and true for our own unique path. By cultivating discernment, we can navigate the spiritual journey with greater clarity, integrity, and authenticity. One of the biggest obstacles on the spiritual path is the notion of perfectionism. Many of us come to spirituality with the idea that we need to be perfect, perfectly kind, perfectly wise, perfectly enlightened. We may hold ourselves to impossible standards and beat ourselves up when we inevitably fall short. This kind of perfectionism is not only unrealistic, but it can actually hinder our growth and progress. The truth is, spirituality is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole, embracing all aspects of ourselves, including our flaws, mistakes, and imperfections. It's about learning to love and accept ourselves exactly as we are, while also striving to grow and evolve. Embracing imperfection means letting go of the need to always get it right, and instead focusing on the journey of learning and self-discovery. It means being kind and compassionate with ourselves when we stumble or fall short, recognizing that these moments are opportunities for growth and self-reflection. It also means being willing to take risks, to try new things, and to learn from our failures as well as our successes. Some ways to embrace imperfection on the spiritual path include practicing self-compassion, letting go of comparisons to others, and focusing on progress rather than perfection. It also means surrounding ourselves with people who support and encourage us in our growth, rather than those who judge or criticize us for our imperfections. Ultimately, embracing imperfection is about recognizing the beauty and value in our humanness. It's about understanding that our flaws and struggles are not obstacles to our spirituality, but rather an integral part of the journey. By learning to love and accept ourselves just as we are, we open ourselves up to greater growth, healing, and transformation. The spiritual journey can be a lonely and isolating one at times. We may feel like we don't fit in with our old friends or family members, or like no one understands the changes we're going through. This is why finding support and community is so important. Having people who can relate to our experiences, offer guidance and encouragement, and remind us that we're not alone. There are many ways to find spiritual support and community. One option is to seek out a local meditation or yoga group, church or religious organization, or other spiritual gathering place. These can be great places to connect with like-minded individuals and learn from experienced teachers and practitioners. Another option is to seek out online communities, such as forums, social media groups, or virtual retreats and workshops. These can be especially helpful if you live in an area without many local spiritual resources, or if you prefer a more anonymous or introverted approach to connecting with others. It's also important to seek out one-on-one support when needed, such as working with a spiritual teacher, mentor, therapist, or counselor. These individuals can provide personalized guidance and support tailored to your unique needs and challenges. When seeking out spiritual community and support, it's important to use discernment and trust your own inner guidance. Look for groups and individuals who resonate with your values and beliefs, and who feel safe, supportive, and authentic. Don't be afraid to ask questions, set boundaries, and walk away from situations that don't feel right for you. Ultimately, Finding spiritual community and support is about recognizing that we're all in this together. By reaching out and connecting with others who are on a similar path, we can find strength, wisdom, and encouragement to keep going, even when the journey gets tough. One of the most important aspects of navigating the dark side of spiritual awakening is practicing self-compassion. Self-compassion means treating ourselves with the same kindness, care, and understanding that we would offer to a good friend or loved one. It's about recognizing that we're all human and that we all make mistakes, struggle, and suffer at times. Practicing self-compassion is especially important during times of spiritual crisis or difficulty. When we're going through the dark night of the soul, facing our shadow, or dealing with ego death, it's easy to fall into patterns of self-judgment, self-criticism, and even self-hatred. We may feel like we're failing at spirituality, or like we're not good enough or worthy enough to be on this path. However, these kinds of self-critical thoughts and beliefs only serve to make the journey harder. They add an extra layer of suffering on top of the already challenging experiences we're going through. Self-compassion, on the other hand, can be a powerful tool for healing, resilience, and growth. Some ways to practice self-compassion include speaking to ourselves with kindness and understanding, as we would to a dear friend. Acknowledging our own pain and suffering without judgment or minimization, recognizing that our struggles and imperfections are a natural part of the human experience. Offering ourselves comfort, support, and encouragement during difficult times. Letting go of unrealistic expectations and standards of perfection. Celebrating our own progress and growth, no matter how small or incremental. Practicing self-compassion doesn't mean that we ignore or deny our faults or mistakes. Rather, it means that we approach them with a sense of understanding, forgiveness, and a commitment to learning and growth. By treating ourselves with compassion and care, we create a solid foundation of inner strength and resilience that can carry us through even the darkest and most challenging times on the spiritual path. As challenging and uncomfortable as the dark side of spiritual awakening can be, it's important to remember that it's not a permanent state. Just as the night always gives way to the dawn, the darkness of spiritual crisis eventually yields to the light of new understanding, growth, and transformation. Emerging from the darkness can be a gradual process, often marked by small moments of clarity, insight, and relief. We may start to feel a sense of renewed purpose or direction, or a deepening connection to our own inner wisdom and intuition. We may also notice shifts in our relationships, our work, or our overall sense of well-being and happiness. It's important to approach this process of emergence with patience, self-compassion, and trust. Just as a butterfly doesn't force its way out of the chrysalis, but rather allows the process to unfold in its own time, we too must allow our own transformation to happen at its own pace. Rushing or forcing the process can actually hinder our growth and healing. Some helpful practices for supporting the process of emergence include continuing with regular spiritual practices, such as meditation, prayer, or self-reflection. Seeking out supportive community and guidance as needed, engaging in creative pursuits or hobbies that bring joy and fulfillment, spending time in nature, which can be grounding and healing, practicing gratitude and appreciation for the lessons and growth that have come from the darkness, trusting in the unfolding of our own unique path and purpose. As we emerge from the darkness, it's important to remember that the journey of spiritual awakening is an ongoing one. There will likely be more challenges and obstacles ahead, as well as more opportunities for growth, healing, and transformation. By approaching the journey with a sense of openness, curiosity, and trust, we can navigate the ups and downs with greater ease and grace. Ultimately, the dark side of spiritual awakening is not something to be feared or avoided, but rather an integral part of the journey of self-discovery and awakening. By facing our shadows, embracing our imperfections, and learning to treat ourselves with compassion and care, we can emerge from the darkness stronger, wiser, and more fully alive than ever before. In this video, we've explored the often challenging but ultimately transformative experience of navigating the dark side of spiritual awakening. We've discussed common experiences such as the dark night of the soul, facing the shadow self, and dealing with ego death, as well as the importance of cultivating discernment, finding support and community, and practicing self-compassion along the way. We've seen that while the dark side of spirituality can be uncomfortable, painful, and even frightening at times, it's also an essential part of the journey of growth and awakening. By facing our own darkness, we create the conditions for greater light, wisdom, and understanding to emerge.